Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. The class changes are live. The MMR has been injected, and in today's video, I wanted to cover the Balanced Druid. This is still my favorite specialization, and it is still a top performer. Definitely a great one if you're looking to get 1800 for transmogs or any sort of rewards from PvP. We're going to be giving you a breakdown of how to play against melee DPS, as this is the most hotly contended topic that I've seen in the comments section. So the first goal when facing multiple melee DPS is to put your Forrest Gump boots on and run. Okay, listen to Jenny. You need to run away from the bullies. Do not let them get to you as much as possible. In this specific matchup, we are attacking the Fistweaver monk. So when we have a warrior with Mortal Strike, it's really good to pressure the Fistweaver while running away, because as you're kiting, the Fistweaver needs a target to hit and will likely have to veer off of you. As soon as they've veered off of you, this is going to enable you to start free casting a lot more and start pressuring them with Star Surges. So we are using Typhoon, Mass Entangle, and Wild Charge on cooldown, Wild Mushroom and to snare targets, and constantly shape-shifting. So going into Bear when our Paladin is crowd controlled and Frenzied Regenning, and just constantly moving away, trying to limit the amount of melee that are attacking us at any given moment, and strictly using instant cast. So we Wild Charge here, we Typhoon, Mistweaver has to run away, he's getting pressured, I'm kiting, he can't Fistweave, it's making it really awkward for him to be able to survive. We're going to drop a Solar Beam down onto all the Death Knights and the Mistweaver here and try and stack them into silence to make it a bit annoying for them to deal with me. We get a Hammer of Justice. We're going to dump all of our Star Surges into this, continuing to just use instant cast Starfires from being trained by all the melee. We need to get this Fury of Elune on cooldown as soon as possible. But you can see I've got distance. It's a lot easier to play. We had Strangulated, so we're going to bash. We're going to Wild Charge. We're going to go into Bear for a second to shapeshift off the Chains of Ice, continuing to pressure down the Fistweaver, Mass Entangle all the Death Knights, move away, Typhoon the Mistweaver, keep kiting the Mistweaver, try not to let him touch you as much as possible. It's a game of keep away. Fistweavers, you don't want them to touch you. Basically throughout the entire match as much as possible. We're in Bear form here whenever Paladin is CC'd. And Frenzied Regenning, keeping Iron Fur up. We see a Grip double blind, so the Paladin and the Warrior both can't help me. I'm just doing my best to try and snare the Death Knights with the Wild Mushrooms and moving around the map. We get Revival. We're using Thorns as well into double melee DPS, so you want to be using this pretty much on cooldown as they're getting uptime on yourself. This is just going to give you, again, damage that's instant on demand because you're being trained. And the Fistweaver's pressured away. We're going to immediately just tab target to something else. You never want to not be doing something in a round of shuffle, so I just start attacking the Death Knight off to the side, and Fistweaver ends up going down to the Warrior. So in the next round, we're going to have to deal with a Warrior and a Death Knight at the same time, and they're going to have mortal wounds. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult. I'm just going to skip past the waiting room a bit here. With Warrior, Death Knight, and Holy Paladin, now we can use Solar Beam on the healer. This Mistweaver is playing Gnome, so Solar Beam is useless on them. When you're finding a healer that Solar Beam is useless, you want to be basically just using Root on cooldown to root melee off yourself, and Solar Beam to interrupt casts. But against this Paladin, who is Dwarf, we'll be able to remove it, but not as frequently. We want to be Solar Beaming with Root on the Paladin. So we're just starting the fight max distance away. I see a Grip into a triple blind, so I'm going to drop a Root Beam onto it. Just crowd control the Paladin. Incarn stack, it's a triple. I'm going to get Stellar Flares on multiple targets, so it's really good to get high value from Incarn whenever you get a triple stack like that. And I'm doing my best to just disengage away from the Grips, use Stampeding Roar, kite away, keep your distance, and try and stay far away. Now they're really starting to hammer down for me. We got Shockwave. We're going to Trinket out right away. We've got Incarn up. It's all of their cooldowns. You don't want to be frugal in this type of matchup with melee comps. You only really want to be tactical with your Trinket against something like a Subtlety Rogue. Against this, you just want to maximize your damage during Incarn and limit their uptime. Spell Reflect is very dangerous here. I get Spell Reflected on a clone, and now our Mistweaver, I can't really help them. So it's very dangerous. You got to be paying attention to it. I've got Omnibar here that lights up, as well as I believe big debuffs that shows the Spell Reflect above the frame. Would highly recommend those add-ons if you haven't gotten them. We're going to continue to try and get some distance here. Freedom is up, so we don't want to use Mass Entangle. We're going to go for Thorns. We get Thorns up. That's redirecting damage. Death Knight is likely going to be primary target. Death Knight is just a bit easier to take down than Warrior, or even Paladin is a decent target. We get a Strangulate onto the Paladin, so I really want to try and get a Root Beam out of it. We go for a Solar Beam. That gets the Paladin's Trinket and the Sacrifice. Now the Death Knight's running away, so I see an opportunity to sneak away to the left side here. Got to help the Monk a bit, though, and we get Spell Reflected on a clone again, and that's going to get Trinket and Life Cocoon. This is why Spell Reflect is so dangerous. It's usually better to try and get it out of the way before you really need to get a clone. But now we get a clone on the warrior. We've isolated the Death Knight. I can jump towards the paladin, go for a clone on the paladin out of that mind freeze. And as soon as you can see, they've gotten off me at a certain point. You just want to make yourself so annoying to attack that they have to get off of you. And you can do that with Typhoon, Mass Entangle, and Wild Charge. We got Thorns here up onto the Mistweaver, spamming clones on the Pally. We're just dunking Star Surges into the Death Knight. We're going to jump over for a bash onto the paladin as they have no trinket, no bubble. They've already used it earlier. Fury of Elune ticking away, breaking through the anti-magic shield, and we're just hammering damage down until we can finally take down the Death Knight. So against healers that you can chain CC with Solar Beam, you want to be chain CCing them. Bash Clone, Solar Beam, but against healers that you can't, depending on which ones that they are, like Fistweaver, you want to focus them down a little bit. We're jumping here now into the third round. Skipped a little bit too far ahead. Now we can't Solar Beam the healers, so we're going to Mass Entangle DPS. We're going to try and get control of them, stagger it out. So we start the fight, Mass Entangle, we get gripped, blinded. We need to Wild Charge Stampede as soon as possible. That's my getaway card against Death Knights in the opener, is Wild Charge and Boomkin with Stampeding Roar. So we're just sprinted, we get freedom, we can run with the sprint, and we can go into bear form now, pop that Frenzied Regen, go for a bash defensively. You can see like my plays are a lot different when we're fighting the Fistweaver. My stuns are going into the DPS, roots are going into the DPS. It's about keeping them away, staggering the fight, and trying to find your moment. Now I found that moment. I got distance, Death Knight, Warrior, Fistweaver, they're not on me. I'm going to lob out that Incarn, keep pumping out Star Surges over onto the Mistweaver. Now they're forced behind the pillar. We can swap over to the Death Knight, so attacking the Fistweaver and the Death Knight mostly, and trying to control the Warrior. Root the Death Knight and his pet here. I've rooted the pet because it's empowered. Whenever they use Dark Transformation, that's going to be a big damage moment for the Death Knight, so using Mass Entangle onto all their pets is going to be a good idea during that window of time. We're going to use Thorns here since we don't have a lot of other ways to escape them. This is just going to redirect damage to them to try and, you know, encourage them to not, or discourage them to not attack us. Paladin stun, so we go into bear form. We're going to use Frenzied Regen. I see Anti-Magic Zone come down, so I'm going to go in that in bear form. We've got Heart of the Wild up at this point. All three of them are attacking me, so Heart of the Wild whenever you've got no way to really get away. We drop a Root Solar Beam. Fistweaver's never going to really cast. I dropped it to try and just annoy him a little bit, but he's just going to gnome out of it anyways. I honestly could have probably just saved the Solar Beam effect, and possibly for Death Knights in this instance, bash into Solar Beam on Death Knight would actually be really wise to stop them from using Icebound Fortitude, as opposed to Solar Beaming the Monk. We sneak in a Cyclone here onto the Mistweaver Monk, and we're swapping over to the Death Knight, jumping away, trying to prevent those Death Strikes. That gets Life Cocoon, but we are getting really low. So Paladin bubbles, we're in Bear Frenzied Regenning, trying to Typhoon the Fistweaver off, trying to root them off of ourselves. We're in a Bark Skin and Bear form as soon as it comes up, and use Iron Fur. Make sure you're generating rage using Iron Fur. We dash away in Cat form, and we're just spam Shapeshifting while charging away and trying to get distance. We get grip back in once again. We're going to continue to move away. We're trying to fake kicks here. We don't get the fake on the Mind Freeze, but it's fine. We still have Blessing of Protection up for a few more seconds. We're going to go for a clone again. We get that onto the Monk. They get the trinket from the Monk, but he life cocooned earlier, so he's in a really tough spot for healing this Death Knight, and we stun him now with no trinket. I'm going to continue to move away, and that Searing Glare hits the whole team, prevents the Fistweaver from hitting them, and he can't heal if he can't hit them, so we're able to take down the Death Knight. Constantly move away, constantly run, and when you get distance, that's when you want to, you know, have that moment where you turn around, you start looking for clones, you start looking for damage, and you start hammering out as much pressure as possible. Same type of matchup here again with the Death Knight and the Warrior and the Monk, so we're going to start the fight from a little bit of ways here, trying to look for a Cyclone. Fortunately, blind overlapped. It's solo shuffle. That's going to happen, but you know, getting a Cyclone from stealth while you're invisible is generally a good idea if you want to start with crowd control. But now they're focusing our Death Knight. We've been kiting them so hard that they've literally given up on attacking me, and this is what you want. This is the ideal situation, is that you get so good at kiting that people in your lobby just don't even bother attacking you, because then it lets you do this. Spam Cyclone. You can Cyclone up the Warrior. That gets the trinket from the Warrior really fast. We're going to go for Cyclone on the Monk. That might even get trinket from the Monk in this position. If it doesn't, it's going to get a lot of cooldowns. Then we can Cyclone the Life Cocoon on the Death Knight, and we can have a lot more fun now. So you need to just get really good at using Wild Charge, Typhoon, and Mass Entangle to get distance from melee attackers. We can toss out off heals here. I've got Heart of the Wild up in the opener against all of their stacked cooldowns, and you can just spam Regrowth, be a support for your team, and really use all of the Boomkin utility to its full potential. Cyclones on Fistweaver. This is going to really put them behind. We got Thorns up on the Death Knight. That's redirecting damage. We already broke Anti-Magic Shield. We got more Cyclones incoming. We get really low here, but we're just going to triple clone, and we were able to finish off the Death Knight with pressure there. And look at our DPS skyrockets, so we're not getting trained, and we can just sit there and focus on doing max damage. So that's going to be the name of the game here when you're facing melee DPS, is to do as I've outlined in these first few rounds, is to just get really exceptional at kiting until people give up on attacking you, and then you can focus on the offensive advantages that come in with the Balanced Druid. And these are my strategies in these lobbies and the situations. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make make sure to thumbs up, comment down below with your thoughts. What would you like to see as far as guides are concerned? I'm streaming every day. That's in the description down below. I'm pushing, top 5 on multiple specializations in solo shuffle. So if you ever need advice or tips, definitely swing by. But thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.